Now, according to the administration that runs Nigeria's capital, Abuja, the shanty towns and ramshackle structures that ring the city are becoming the denizen of criminal gangs who emerge from these no-go areas to terrorize city and suburban dwellers. But as you heard earlier, city officials have begun a joint army and police exercise to wrest control of these areas from criminals and to get rid of illegal structures in and around Abuja, which they say violate the original plans for the city. At the weekend, armed police units backed by soldiers and road safety officers began demolishing these shacks in the suburbs of Jabi, Maitama, Asokoro, Gwarimpa and others. They met little resistance as the apparent gang members chose to flee rather than fight. But demolition has meant that many innocent poor people have become homeless with no place to go. Well, we heard earlier from the Abuja city official in charge of demolishing these structures. Let's hear now from the anti-poverty campaign group Action Aid Nigeria, represented here by Adeduntan Adewale, who's their manager for social mobilization. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
What do you make of the demolition derby that's taking place in Abuja that we saw on television there?
Fantastic. The truth of the matter is that...
you think it's fantastic?
No, certainly. The thought behind it, in terms of the position we take, supporting the masses, that's what I mean, that it is interesting to see how insensitive the authority could be. Because beyond people living in shanties, there are stories behind that. And the truth of the matter is that will infractions ever stop if the displacement in the northeast, northwest, and other part of the country will not stop? Certainly, we'll still have more influx into the federal capital city, because that's where people feel they can have refuge, and that's where they think they are safe. Of course,
that's a very good point. So there's the space, the psychological space where people feel comfortable is getting smaller.
Sure.
Which is why they crowd around places like this.
And that is the thing. They never had anyone here to say this way I'm going. But the first instinct when your life is threatened is survivor. And they feel that if they get to the federal capital territory where they feel is the refuge, they will be safer. Coming here, probably they do not have anyone to host them. You find them taking spaces to ensure that they fight for their survivor. The point we are making is that the master plan of the federal capital territory must be sustained, it must be upheld, but the truth of the matter is that the campaign around demolition in the past, the scenario has changed. We are having insecurity all and across the federation now. What we are saying is that the demolition and control or enforcement should be done with human face, and it should be taken into account that what will become the situation of these people that are being displaced. We have children there, we have girls, we have women who will not be safe by being displaced from where they think they are taking refuge. And this is the part we have told as an organization to say no, in the sense that we have to protect the city, human lives must also be protected, well protected. So what alternatives are provided if we say we are driving them away from where they are? Fine, the city must be kept beautiful. If we say people are disfiguring the neighborhood, the beautiful landscape we have, it tells so much story about the fact that we have not done so much in terms of ensuring that we increase the prosperity of the people and we make the spaces we have across the federation safer for the people.
Right. I'm going to get to that very important point that you make about social services, but the FCT administration, the Abuja administration, have said that these shanty towns provide cover for criminal gangs who go into the city to terrorize city dwellers. And as we know, I mean, Abuja has had quite a bit of criminal activity, and it's getting worse. So they argue they have to get on top of it before it goes really bad. What's your reaction to that?
We agree that security of life and property in the city and across the federation is of utmost important fact. However, we are saying that people that are being displaced from these shanties they are also human beings. Where is the place of sanctity of life? We can't just throw them out. Of course, I know notices must have been given. Fine. But are there alternatives to say, oh, in the meantime, you can't stay here. You can take temporary shelter in these specific places? I'm sure I had the officer who came on here to speak about those things. But the reality is that these people are just floating. We know that security is important, but what about the safety of these people? They are Nigerians,
but
that are being displaced. Right. What about their safety?
Yeah, that's a very legitimate point. But you are Action Aid. Your remit is to deal with things like poverty and so on, and therefore you monitor these things. Are you aware of any social services at all that are provided for people in those circumstances by the government?
There are centers across the cities, but the level of comfort that people can get there, I think you have to also bring these people that are affected to speak directly about this.
Yeah, but it can't be worse than living in a shack, though. I mean,
but the truth of the matter is that people are used to the fact that they have to make livelihoods where they are. Are they comfortable in terms of making what could make them to earn a decent living? If we send, it's like shifting people from the devil and the deep blue sea. In between, there should be a buffer zone, and that's the point we are making. Elsewhere, where it is not our fatherland, when people take refuge as refugees or people taking asylum, they get better care and support. We are not saying that the master plan should be distorted. Certainly no. But we are saying that in between ensuring the beautiful landscape we have, by way of ensuring that the master plan is not distorted, we can also ensure that we have minimum standard of comfort for people that are being driven away from these places. Let me tell you what will happen. We are trying to prevent crime and criminality, right? With this displacement, you find people also dipping their hands into issues around crime and criminality.
That's a good point.
So it's a case of having a delicate balance in between these two. But above all, the sanctity of human life and the dignity of people is important to us.
Yes.
As a civil society
but does Action Aid provide any help? I mean, in the circumstances where there aren't clearly any social services to speak of, what happens to those displaced people? Is there a camp they go to? I mean, you mentioned somewhere, but what I'm saying is that, you know, for example, if you're a refugee, I mean, there are refugee camps around Abuja, that there used to be at least, and in other cities and so on, where you can actually go. I mean,
Action Aid provide food and non-food items in IDP camps, wherever we have them in the country. But in this case, with the magnitude of people that are displaced currently, you had the man who spoke on TV.
Yeah, he talked about thousands.
Resources, even for government, it's not there.
But what I'm saying is that if somebody's home were to be destroyed, I mean, their shanty, sort of shack, where do you say to them to go? If you guys were there to sort of bring some kind of succor to them, what do you say to them? Where do they go? Do they go to the IDP camps? Or
in the interim, for us, we do not have a shelter where we keep this kind of people.
No, but where would you say to them to go in order to get shelter?
We think around providing psychosocial support to these people. There are other CSOs and other partners who are into that. We make referrals where possible to ensure. The most important thing when this happens is to give psychosocial support to people, because look at the emotional implication of what has happened. Look at the health implication of all of this for people. There are girls and women involved in all of this, and their mental health is key. A lot of people are being driven to the edge of trying to commit suicide. So when we hear about this kind of cases, what we do is more of referral to places where they can get support.
Okay. I want to thank you very much indeed, Adeduntan Adewale, who is the manager for social mobilization for the anti-poverty campaign group Action Aid Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed.
It's my pleasure.